Toughest Mudder Europe recap on the podcast today. We've got results, statistics, and interviews from people who were there, including the male winner, Jon Albon. This is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to the world's toughest podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's world's toughest mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the world's toughest podcast. Toughest Mudder Europe was held this past weekend in Belvoir Castle in the United Kingdom. Do you know the difference between the United Kingdom and England? You can find out on my new podcast, World's Toughest Geography, where we talk about any country you'd like, as long as it includes England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. We're focusing on Toughest Mudder Europe this episode, but don't forget that Toughest Mudder Philadelphia is this weekend also. We're going to talk about Toughest Mudder Philly later this week. Before we talk about Toughest Mudder Europe, we got some iTunes reviews. So it's not hard work to do this podcast. I enjoy it. I enjoy talking about Tough Mudder. But it does take time that I could be spending with my family or working out or doing something else. So I really enjoy the iTunes reviews. I appreciate that people are listening and people enjoy the information. Dr. Laura D wrote, new to Muds, 5 stars. Love the podcast. I have never run a mudder. I just signed up to do my first Tough Mudder 5K in August, Nashville, Tennessee. Trying to figure out how to train. Would love to hear more podcasts about how people prepared for the mudder. Thanks for the podcasts. Dr. Laura has never run a Tough Mudder, and she listens to our podcast here. Her first Tough Mudder will be the 5K, like she just said. We talked about the 5K with Eli and Nolan on episode 4. And we're going to talk about it again as we get closer to August. Tough Mudder is doing one 5K race this year. It's kind of a pilot program to see how it goes. Ultimately, I think it's a good idea. The more people that are running Tough Mudder branded races, then the better World's Toughest Mudder will be for those of us who care about that the most. World's Toughest Mudder is Tough Mudder's showcase event. It's the big show at the end of the season. The way to think about it is the Super Bowl is the world's toughest mudder of football. And the more money that comes in from the Tough Mudder 5Ks or the Tough Mudder halves or the Tough Mudder 1 milers or whatever they do, then the more they can direct that funding toward their showcase event at the end of the season. So Tough Mudder 5K is a good thing. And it may turn into be a great thing. We'll have to see and look back on it in a couple years. Jay-Z Twin wrote, great Tough Mudder content. 4 stars. World's Toughest Podcast is new to the OCR podcast game, but is very entertaining. Will does a great job covering Tough Mudder with plenty of interviews and course discussion. My only concern is eventually the show could get mundane, as there's only so much content you can cover with one racing series. But so far, this has become go-to podcast in my stable of podcasts. Jay-Z Twin, I promise you, the show will not get mundane. It will either be great or it will be terrible, but we will not be mundane. Don't worry about that. M. Stefano wrote, getting pumped for our first WTM, 5 stars. I heard about this podcast from Matt B. Davis and needed to binge listen to a lot of past episodes to be caught up. This was easy to do as the content is very informative and helped make not only my team's road trips to races easier, but I also had it playing where I usually hit my wall in half marathons, mile 10. But I was able to distract myself enough and shave 10 minutes off my personal record at the finish. Huge thanks for that, Will Hicks. I also made sure to give you a brief shout out at the end of my most recent podcast episode of M. Stefano Running. Keep up the great work. Mike, thank you for the kind words. Congratulations on improving your PR there. I don't think I can take any credit for that, though. Well done. You guys should check out his podcast. It's a mix of road running and OCR content. Mike says some nice things about our little old show here, but his female co-host, Caitlin, seems less impressed. Mike's talking to her about the show and about our show, and she goes, wait, it's just about Tough Mudder? And Mike goes, yeah. And she says, oh, okay. But that's all right, though, as I am used to disappointing the ladies. Episode 19 is where he talks about us. So, and Mike, I would love to meet up with you in Vegas at World's Toughest Mudder. You mentioned that on your show. If you would like to leave a review for the podcast, go to iTunes and search for Tough Mudder. We're the first podcast that pops up. Click the logo, then click ratings and reviews. It'll take you literally 20 seconds. We may read your review on the podcast. Last thing, before we talk about Toughest Mudder Europe, I got a real nice email from Paul Marriott. I met Paul on the course at Toughest Atlanta a few weeks ago. Paul says, "Hi, Will. It was good meeting you on Kong at the end of Toughest Mudder South. Given the game face photos were so bad, I thought you might like this one of us at the finish. I thought the event was really good, and after several years of wishing I was there, I will be taking part in WTM this year. Cheers, Paul." And Paul sent me a picture of the two of us crossing the finish line. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Paul looks very cool, and I look mildly confused. Paul, thanks for your email. Congratulations on signing up for World's Toughest. The hardest obstacle is clicking that register button the first time. The first time I signed up, right after I clicked it, I was like, what are you doing? Why did you do that? But after a while, you realize you're committed, and it gets real. So good for you, man. Signing up for the first one is the hardest. And thanks for the picture. If you have a picture of me you'd like to send me, you can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. All right, let's talk about Toughest Mudder Europe. Here's Nolan Campbell of Tough Mudder headquarters from the podium at Toughest Mudder Europe.
Every event we do has different challenges. In Los Angeles, it was the hills. In Atlanta, it was the mud. Here, it was the cold. It was the rain. You guys continue to endure it. Very impressed what you guys did. It was tough last night. I don't think I've seen conditions that are that tough. In fact, on par, most of the lap splits were a lot slower than the first two, which lets me know that was a very tough course. I know a lot of you guys are agreeing out there. You guys saw it. How many people failed? No, actually, how many people actually made it through hang time? Let's see the success rate. There's a few hands, maybe like 5% of the group. Golden. So you guys who ran 25 miles qualified for the contender category, running in World's Toughest Mudder. I can promise you it's going to be bigger and badder than it's ever been. I love Las Vegas. I know a lot of you guys do. Come check it out. I know it's a big trip, but we're excited to see you, and we love it when the Europeans come out. And we love it to see such a big group of different countries represented here, and such a new portion of mudders to this community, which is growing every year. So fantastic for you guys for coming out.
That clip reminds me that World's Toughest Mudder is less than 6 months away. You and I are focused on Toughest Mudder and what's going on in Philly or Chicago or Whistler. But at Tough Mudder headquarters, they have to be deep in the planning for World's Toughest already. It's pretty easy for Nolan to promise bigger and better. But every year, they deliver on that promise. Starting in 2014, when they premiered King of the Swingers and were able to debut the Cliff because of the new location in Las Vegas, it changed the race from a miserable suckfest to a slightly more fun suckfest. Every year they roll out something big and unique at World's Toughest Mudder. Obstacles that you're not going to see at regular Tough Mudders the rest of the year, or even Toughest Mudder. Last year the big one was Double Rainbow. Double Rainbow is King of the Swingers times 2. Instead of reaching out from the bar to ring the bell, you reach out and grab a second trapeze bar. And then as you swing from the second bar, you release at the end and land on a giant crash pad. So if you're successful at the obstacle, you stay dry. You don't get wet like you usually would at King of the Swingers. It was great. It was fun. But you're not going to see Double Rainbow outside of World's Toughest Mudder. In 2015, it was Block Ness Monster. They debuted it at Vegas. They called it Roll the Dice then, but it didn't have 2 blocks. It had 4 blocks, and it was fun then too. Sign up, guys. It's going to sell out this year. Sign up. Email me after you sign up, willhicks@gmail.com. Tell me you did it. Let's talk about the women's podium. Here's Gil Kolirin from Tough Mudder UK with the announcements.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we have our ladies category first. Just a wonderful mention for our 5th and 4th place. Firstly, in 5th place, today, Sorrel Lewis with 30 miles. Let's give her a massive round of applause. And in 4th place, an absolute monster shift put in by Jon Albon's sister. That's Beth Albon on 30 miles also. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our third placed female, coming all the way out of Denmark, first time at toughest. Please welcome onto stage the one and only Ulrika Evensen. And now in second place, ladies and gentlemen, her third regional toughest this year. Having finished second and fifth, she finishes second today, all out of the USA, 35 miles. Give it up for Sarah Knight. And now, ladies and gentlemen, coming all the way from Germany, 2016's World Toughest Mudders runner-up. She's hit 35 today. Make some noise for the one and only Suzanne Kraus.
So your top 5 women are Suzanne Kraus in first, Sarah Knight in second, Ulrika Evensen in third, Beth Albon in fourth, and Sora Lewis in fifth. As Gil mentioned, Suzanne Kraus won second place at World's Toughest Mudder last year. She finished with 80 miles, only behind Stephanie Bishop's 85. While he had them on the podium, Gil asked the women how they were feeling. He started with Ulrika Evensen in third, then went to Sarah Knight in second, and then to Suzanne Kraus in first.
Ladies, I'm going to get a quick word from each one of you. Sum it up in one line. How are you feeling?
Feeling great. Yeah, I'm tired. Great course. Great course.
Loved it. Fantastic. Great to hear from you. Sum it up for me in one line. How you feeling standing over there, and tell me about today or last night.
I'm feeling sore but happy. And the sun's out. Yay!
Sun is out. It's time for some sunbathing. Top of the leader pile. How you feeling right now?
Very, very heavy. No. I'm down, but I'm very, very happy.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, give our 3 ladies a massive round of applause.
After the women left the stage, they moved on to the men's podium.
In 5th place, coming out of Germany, World's Toughest Mudder, 2nd place in 2015. Give it up for Felix Baker. Ladies and gentlemen, just again another mention in 4th place from Slovakia on 40 miles, Lucas Abran. Give it up for Lucas Abran. Which brings me to our 3rd, 2nd and 1st place. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a fantastic race from these 3. Absolutely sensational. Let's give it up in 3rd place, out of Denmark, the one and only Michael Schutt. 45 miles. The next 2 in 2nd place, ladies and gentlemen. He's finished runners-up to Jon Albon a couple of times, and he's going to have to do it again, ladies and gentlemen. Please give it up all the way from the United States, the one and only Chad Tremmel, and 45 miles. And he is the 2015 World Toughest Mudder champion right here in 2nd place at regionals. And ladies and gentlemen, last night and today, he achieved the fastest lap split of the season. He also achieved a monumental 50 miles. He is a 2-time World's Toughest Mudder champion in the team category. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for GP's one and only Jon Albon.
So your top 5 men are Jon Albon in first, Chad Trammell in second, Michael Schutt in third, Lucas Abran in fourth, and Felix Baker in fifth. Jon Albon and Chad Trammell, you know, I don't know the guys in third or fourth, but 5th place was Felix Baker. He was a member of the 6-man team from Germany that finished second at World's Toughest in 2015 to the 4-man team that Ryan Atkins and Jon Albon were a part of, Team Synergy Sports. Let me tell you about that team from Germany, Team Getting Tough. Early in 2015, Tough Mudder announced that the team race would be different this year. It would be relay-based, and at least 2 members of the team would have to be out on the course at any given time. So Team Getting Tough thought, if everyone is sending out 2 people at a time, let's send out 3 people at a time, and we'll have an advantage at the obstacles. What this meant was that instead of a 4-man team, they needed a 6-man team. So they got 6 guys together and started training. And it makes sense, right? Sure. Until Tough Mudder announced, hey, never mind, we're going to do it the way we did it last year and the years before. Minimum 4 people, all 4 people have to stay together the entire time. So now Team Getting Tough has a team of 6 guys. They can't send 2 teams of 3 because they have to be a minimum of 4. And what are they going to do? Cut 2 guys? Say, no, you can't come. We just need the 4 fast ones. So all 6 guys came over as one team, and they won second place. It was very impressive. Tough Mudder has a new additional team category for World's Toughest this year that almost looks like it was custom designed for Team Getting Tough. We'll talk about that in a future episode. Once he had them up on the podium, Gil asked the men's winners to sum up the night in one line. Like the women, Gil goes from third to first. Michael Schuett, Chad Trammell, and finally Jon Albon.
One quick word from each one of you. Sum it up in a line. Jon, how you feeling?
Hard, tired, totally.
Tired, totally. How we doing? How you feeling now?
Doing great. Hey, thanks for everyone who supported, helped over obstacles, and cheered when we went by. It was amazing out there. Congrats to everyone.
Lovely words, Chad. Sum it up, go on.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, actually. It was pretty fun.
To wrap up the ceremony, they brought the top 3 women back on stage and passed out champagne bottles to everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we are. All 6 of them. Let's give them another massive, giant round of applause. It's champagne time. Pop those corks. Enjoy yourselves. Here it comes. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you your top 6 male and female regional toughest 2017.
I didn't think about it until I was watching the video, but this is the second time in 3 races that Chad Trammell and Sarah Knight have shared a podium step. Chad and Sarah both finished second at Toughest Mudder LA. So after 3 Toughest Mudder races, we have 13 different men and 11 different women who have qualified as elite contenders for World's Toughest 2017. Just to review, anyone can sign up for World's Toughest Mudder in the open category. If you complete 25 miles at a Toughest Mudder, you qualify to complete at World's Toughest in the contender category. Contenders get better pit location, better starting chute location, and are eligible to win prize money. If you finish in the top 5 at a Toughest Mudder, you qualify to compete at World's Toughest in the Elite Contender category. Elite contenders receive premium pit location, premium start line location, and in addition to being eligible for prize money, they are also eligible for the $50,000 bonus prize. Elite contenders can win the bonus prize by winning World's Toughest Mudder and completing 110 miles as a man or 100 miles as a woman. So with 3 races to go, here are your 24 elite contenders so far. For the men, Ryan Atkins, Chad Trammell. Ryan and Chad have both qualified 2 times. Ryan in Los Angeles and Atlanta, and Chad in Los Angeles and Europe. Jon Albon, Glenn Race, Ryan Woods, Luke Bosick, Tyler Nash, Van Tran, Michael Schuett, Austin Azar, Mark Jones, Lucas Abram, and Felix Baker. And for the women, the elite contenders are Sarah Knight, Lindsay Webster, Allison Ty, Alex Chikorita, Rodea. Sarah, Lindsay, Allison, and Chikorita have all qualified as elite contenders multiple times. Chikorita was in LA and Atlanta. Allison was in LA and Atlanta. And Lindsay was in LA and Atlanta. Sarah Knight is the only person, male or female, to qualify as an elite contender at all 3 Toughest Mudders. Sarah's next Toughest Mudder is this weekend in Philly. And that'll actually be a story to watch to see if Sarah can finish in the top 5, again, qualify as an elite contender for a 4th time on less than a week's rest, 1 week from Toughest Mudder Europe. Most, if not all, of the elite competition in Philly sat out Toughest Mudder Europe, so they'll have an advantage over her. That'll be something to watch this Saturday or Sunday. The other female elite contenders are Suzanne Kraus, Kayla Coblin, April Hartwig, Casey Northup, Okri Evanson, Beth Albon, and Sorrel Lewis. How many people ran Toughest Europe? How many of them qualified as contenders? Here are some statistics for you. Toughest Mudder Europe. 775 started the race. 254 completed 25 miles. So 33% qualified as contenders at Toughest Mudder Europe. How does that compare to Atlanta and LA? I'm glad you asked. Toughest Mudder Atlanta. 444 started the race. 270 completed 25 miles. So 61% qualified as contenders at Toughest Mudder Atlanta. Toughest Mudder Los Angeles. 336 started the race. 153 completed 25 miles. 46% qualified as contenders at Toughest Mudder Los Angeles. So in total, from all three races so far, 1,555 people have crossed the start line at a Toughest Mudder. 677 people have completed 25 miles. So 44% of Toughest Mudder participants have earned contender status. Of those 677 people that are contenders, there are some people that have earned contender multiple times, but it's not as many as you might think. There's Sarah, Ryan, Lindsay, Chad, Allison, and Chikorita. There's Sharkbait, Melissa Dugan. She's run all three Toughest Mudders. She qualified at 2 of them. There's Mark James, who's writing about his Toughest Mudder experiences on his website, toughmuddersphere.blogspot.com. That's 8 that I know of, and I'm sure there's more that I don't know about, but I can't imagine there's more than 20. Yes, that's a number, but it's not a big number. So it's about 677 contenders. If you just go by the contender numbers, Europe had 33% of the field get contender status, LA had 46% of the field, and Atlanta had 61% of the field. Another way to look at the numbers, LA had 153 contenders, Europe had 254 contenders, and Atlanta had 270 contenders. So Atlanta and Europe produced about the same number of contenders, just a bunch more people showed up in Europe to run Toughest. So what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. Mark Twain said there are 3 kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. So which Toughest has been the hardest so far? There are a handful of people running all 6 of them. Sharkbait, I just mentioned. Jim Campbell, the GOAT, is running all 6. Sarah Knight is the only elite running all 6. She's like I just said, she's qualified as an elite contender at all 3 so far. Mark James and Maddie Gregg have each run all 3 Toughest so far. So those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people are planning or could run all 6. When all of the Toughest races are over, I'll sit down with those people and we'll hash it out and we will have a verdict for you. You can find the raw numbers that I used on the Conquest Events results page for the 3 Toughest Mudders. You can find my statistics that I just read on the World's Toughest Podcast Facebook page, facebook.com/World's Toughest Pod. We've got some quick hit interviews with Phil Renton, Emma Faye, Robbie Brown, and Nye Davies, all of whom competed this past weekend. And then we're going to talk to the men's winner of Toughest Mudder Europe, Jon Albon. Let's go to the phones. Phil Renton.
Hi, Will. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, mate. Good. Tired, but good.
Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
How was Toughest Mudder Europe?
It was amazing. It was amazing. It was everything I thought it'd be and more.
Tell me about
it. Where do I begin? We got there, we set everything up. I got my team sort of get together about 6 months ago. And then everyone's been buzzing for it. We've done like a bit of training for it. And we've set up some of like our own obstacles and things to try out. And then we got to the event, set everything up, got on the start line, and then just pushed through for the night. We had a couple of injuries, weren't major things, just little sort of niggles from from like just old injuries, sort of kicking in and stuff from a couple of the members of the team. But other than that, there was 9 of us who turned up and 3 who got injured, slight injuries, and then the 5 of us completed the 8.5 hours. So we just pushed through. It was just amazing.
So you started with 9 guys. 5 of you made it the full 8.5 hours.
Yeah.
Did the other 4 drop because of the injuries or because of cold?
No, they just dropped because of injuries. Like one guy had he twisted his ankle. One guy had an old knee injury. That's just sort of flared up after the second lap. And one of the girls had a shoulder problem. I think that just flew up a little bit. But other than that, the healthy, the well, it wasn't really a major thing. They just considered like work, and then went. Sure. I don't think I want to get broken completely.
How many miles did you get?
I got 20 miles in, and officially 18, I think it was. But we just came in at 8:36.
Oh no.
We didn't crack that last, but I was spent. I was running and I was like having to stop, and the guys were literally dragging me by me vest forwards. Sure. So I was just, it broke me completely, but it was great.
Would you do World's Toughest?
I'd love to. I wanted to a couple of years ago, but I've realised that my fitness isn't there yet. So I'm trying to get my fitness up for the end of next year, and I'd love to come out and do it.
What was the hardest part of Toughest Mudder Europe?
I think it was the terrain. The terrain got me. By the end of it, my feet were just completely shattered. I think it was the 45-degree angles on most. It was like sort of high to low, right to left on a lot of the course. That just got to me. The obstacles were fine. They just zapped your energy, which was expected, really. But just the terrain, that constant 45-degree angle, just battered my feet. I think that's more what sort of got to me. And the bits like slight incline, the undulation in the terrain was all expected. But yeah, just that angle just really like sort of got me down a little bit. But other than that, it was the hardest bit was probably just it was the mentally. I think I was on my game. I was fine. I was there all the way, but my body was just slowing down. I was just fighting it in my brain, going, "Come on, you can do this."
Tell me about those hills. You weren't going uphill. You were going across the hills.
You're going across there. Yeah, it's like 45-degree angle you're running across. Because you're sort of offset, you're just trying to keep your hips moving, keep yourself going. It just batters your right foot the whole time. And that was just the killer, really.
Tell me about the mental part of it. You said you were on your game mentally?
Yeah, on my game mentally. I think as I approached every obstacle, I was literally just lit up for it. I was just, obviously, the team that I work with, were really close-knit. So every time we approached an obstacle, every team member knows the role. We've drilled it so many times, so any new people that come in literally fit in like a puzzle piece. It wasn't a problem. So we were just helping people over and getting through. And the major thing is we all have really good communication, all good teamwork. So we all just push together as one unit, and we get through that. I think at any time on an obstacle, like say the T-bone walls, I think we were on and off them within about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. We were just right over them, straight through. We never took any penalties. The penalties we did take, it was literally down to fatigue and cramp and stuff like that. But yeah, we just pushed through them as well.
Did you guys train together beforehand?
Yeah, we all trained together. We've trained together for the past 3 years. We've been doing Tough Mudders since 2013, since you originally started. So I'm myself, I'm one of the other guys. Two of the other guys. We've done 12 events so far, and most of the other guys are around like 5, 6. Obviously, so we've just instilled a little bit of knowledge and training into them and just pushed through. We've developed as a team over the years, I think, and we've just pushed it a little bit more each time. Every time Tough Mudder sort of develops their obstacles, we try and develop our training to try and match it, which is it's really good. I like that development aspect of the training.
How did it affect your team as you were going throughout the night and you were losing people to injury?
We were split up mainly into 2 teams. I think there's the original team we started with is a 9. 3 broke off from there, or 4 broke off from there. So the 5 that finished with the 5 that were together from the beginning. I think we took it a bit more slow and steady. The other guys took that sprint lap as a bit more of a sprint lap, and that's where I think they weren't warmed up enough within that first like mile or 2, and then they've pushed it, and the injuries have sort of kicked in by mile 2. But we was like sort of stop-start, trying to take it easy. We were going for 25, obviously, but fatigue set in. We got 20, but we were, I think with a slow and steady approach worked for us quite well.
Tell me about that sprint lap. Were all the obstacles closed? Were some of them open?
There was a few obstacles that were open. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was a long night, but I think we hit Mud Mile. I think we hit Quagmire, and what else did we do? I think off the top of my head. I think the walls are open as well. So they were the obstacles that just slowed you down enough just to get your team sort of orientated. I think the biggest one was that the best part about that sprint lap, I think, was it broke off the leaders, broke off the faster people from the slower people, and it let everyone work out the game a little bit more. So it opened you up, it warmed you up, and then you could push through it, and then it didn't congest the course in any way. It was really good. And that was the one thing I was hoping it would do as well, and it did. It just sort of opened the gap up a little bit so you could hit an obstacle and you weren't queuing for too long.
Tell me the best story that happened to you out there.
That's a hard one because the whole night was one big adventure. The story. I don't think the story's good for if this is going online.
Okay,
that's the best.
What's the second best story then?
Second best story is when one of our teammates, we've called him Teapot, but we're going to change his name to Mud Diver because every time there was any mud, he was literally throwing himself straight into it face first. Didn't matter the depth of it; he was just straight in. So yeah, we've called him. His name's Mark Cotter, and yeah, he's an awesome guy. He sprinted it. He got in with the 20-mile mark at the end. He was 2 minutes to spare as well. He just took off on that last 2 mile and went for it. He had like loads of energy left in the bank, which I don't know where he got it from. But yeah, he done really well. But yeah, we changed his name to Mud Diver now because he's just in all the time. Any bit of mud, I think he just goes out just hunting for it normally anyway. I think he puts the babies to bed and then he just goes out and looks for a mud patch to go and jump into.
Does everybody in your team have a nickname?
Yeah, everyone's got one. I'm Bad Jesus. We've got a guy called Animal. We've got a guy called Dirty Dan. We've got Killer Giller. We've got Dr. Deadlift. Who else was there? Sick Note. We've got Mrs. Sick Note. And Emanator as well. So that's what everyone on the team. And then we've obviously got Mud Diver. He's the new guy.
Who picks the nicknames? Is it kind of a consensus or? Yeah,
we see how they are in training as we approach an event, and then we normally stick a nickname on them. But it's me. I'm the team captain myself. So we normally try and do about 50 participants every time we do an event. Obviously, it was a bit different with Europe's. But yeah, there's me, Animal, and Dirty Dan. We're the leaders, and we sort of pick the names out for each event.
What's the name of your group?
Team Evo Fit or Team EFP.
Awesome. Phil Renton, anything else you want to talk about with Europe's Toughest?
Okay, it was just such an amazing event. I think you ticked every single box. It's going to be very hard not to convince other people now to get a team together and come again next year.
Phil Renton, thanks much. Emma Faye, thanks for taking the time.
No props. Happy to.
How was Toughest Mudder Europe?
Toughest Mudder Europe was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. It was really, really challenging. Not just like the distance, but also the time that it was on at. So because it was through the night, it made it really, really hard. Really, really good fun. Not sure I'll do it again, to be honest.
Really?
As I'm a bit of a novice to it. It was really far. But it was really good fun at the same time.
How did you do?
So we did 20 miles. We had a lot of penalties to do. Probably ran about 25 in total, but our team were kind of fraught with injuries. So we had to take a bit of time to sort them out, but we're quite pleased with 20 miles, really, considering it's the furthest I've ever run, so can't complain.
What was the hardest part of the race?
I think the hardest part was like kind of just the mental aspect of it. When you get to like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, you're tired, you've done 10, 15 miles, and it's cold, it's raining, it's still a bit dark, and you sort of your cortisol levels in your body drop, your blood sugar's dropped a bit, your body temperature's dropped, and you just want to give up. So it's just the mental part of it is like keeping on going. I think it's definitely the hardest part for me. So it's good to have a really good team around to like spur each other on and have that camaraderie that's like all the Tough Mudder spirit. That was definitely it.
What did you think of the obstacles?
I thought the obstacles were great. They were really, really good. Kind of surprised in that, like, the American ones, I think, that have been were in 2 loops. There seemed to be less obstacles per loop compared to the Europe's one. So there was, I think, 15, and they were open from start to finish. They didn't close. So the actual obstacles themselves were really, really good. I think my favourite one was King of the Swingers. I liked that, and Block Ness Monster. But there was a lot to do per loop. So that was a bit of a surprise, really, for us.
What was the best story that happened to you out there?
I don't know. I think just that for me, just like that, the team of us that did it, we've only done normal Tough Mudders before. We've never done Worlds or anything like that. And I think just that the fact that like our whole team managed to do it, even though we all sort of like everybody had injuries, everybody managed to push on. I mean, I've heard loads of stories about people passing out and people carrying people over the finish line and hobbling around for 8 hours. Ours wasn't as dramatic as that, unfortunately, but I think just the whole thing, just completely the fact we managed to do it was just amazing. So really pleased, really sore today.
Emma Faye, thank you so much. Robbie Brown, thanks for taking the time.
No problem at all. Thanks for calling.
How was Toughest Mudder Europe?
It lived up to its name, I guess is the way to describe it. It was a fantastic event. I mean, I've done a few Tough Mudders in the past, just, the normal Tough Mudder, and me and two other colleagues just thought we would just give it a go. We're certainly not finely tuned athletes.
Sure.
We did have an aim of 25 miles, which we didn't reach, unfortunately, but yeah, the whole event was really great.
Tell me how you decided to do an 8-hour event, like making the leap from a regular Tough Mudder to an 8-hour.
We all wanted to challenge ourselves, and we'd done Tough Mudders together in the past, and we obviously enjoyed them. So we thought, well, as soon as we saw, we did the South Sutton in, I guess, October last year, and then immediately we got the announcement the next day to say the Europe's Toughest Mudder is coming, obviously, to the UK. So we were just like, we want in, because we love the obstacles, we love the event, we love the camaraderie, that everybody sticks together and helps everybody out. 8 hours is obviously a long time. It would have been a hell of a lot easier if it was during the day. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess it was just because we wanted to push ourselves and see how far we would go. I mean, we've never done anything with that distance, certainly that time in the past. And we'll definitely be back again next year.
How did you do?
We did 4 laps. So unfortunately, we lost one of our. So there were 3 of us running as the same team, or the same group. On the second lap, my other friend Chris Preston, he actually fell off an obstacle and hurt his ankle, so he had to sit out the rest of the race. So it was just 2 for the final 2 laps. But we did have an aim for 25, so obviously 5 laps, but 20 was more than enough, I think. But the biggest struggle was because we've never done an event like this before, we didn't know when to feed our bodies. That was a big issue for us. I mean, we had a lot of energy bars and a lot of drink to consume, but I guess we took it at the wrong times, or we just didn't take enough, because that last lap was particularly difficult.
What was the hardest part of the race?
I would have to say, the final part. We found, so we did the first, I guess, 2 laps, and we felt great. And then the third lap, obviously, we then started to get tired. I think the final part was the push at the end, the final lap for us. Your body just wants to shut down. I think I've never done a marathon before, so people always talk about this wall that you hit, and I think we definitely hit it midway through the final lap. And it was surprising how hard it hit as well, because we reached the obstacles and we just could barely lift ourselves up. I think the big thing for us is we got over the obstacles. Some of the ones that other people were falling on, we managed to do, and so that was a real big plus for us. But certainly, the last maybe hour for us was torture.
With it being your first time with a long overnight event, how did you guys do with the wetsuits and the temperature?
The wetsuits were perfect. In all honesty, we were sort of toying about maybe not wearing wetsuits the night before the event. We sort of thought, because the weather seems quite warm, we almost didn't wear them. And then we got to the event, and it just seemed everybody was doing it. So we thought, we need to wear them. And it turned out to be the best decision. We didn't have expensive wetsuits, and I've got no chafing marks, and it worked perfectly. For Arctic Enema, they are a godsend. Absolutely brilliant.
I heard it started raining partway through.
It did. That was sort of towards the end, but that was actually quite nice, because as well, in the wetsuits, when you're not in the water, you're actually quite warm as you're going in between obstacles. So it was quite nice to have that, and it also helped to clean off the mud.
What's the best story that happened to you during the race?
I think the best story was the King of the Swingers. That was a big plus for us because we managed to do that twice. We only did it twice when it opened. When I had the opportunity to do it twice, but we managed to do that twice. And at the time when we were doing the obstacle, we were the only two, myself and Mike Glover were the only two that actually finished it. So that was a big plus for us. But generally speaking, every obstacle there wasn't. I can't think of one obstacle that I didn't like. Nobody likes to wade through mud for Mud Mile, but you just do it and everybody helps everybody out. So, but I think, the King of the Swingers was great because there seemed to be a lot of people around there that cheered you on, and it was morale boosting. It was really good.
Have you and your friends talked about going to World's Toughest?
Yes, we're seriously considering it. Obviously, we've got one now that is currently injured, but it only seems to be a sprained ankle, on first check of it. So, yeah, we're pretty close, I think, to be honest. It's difficult, especially now that we've finished the event, and obviously we're a day away from it. We're sort of the thing that we could do. We did 8 hours, and then we would have to do that over again twice. Is pretty phenomenal. But certainly, I think with a bit more training, a lot more training, shall we say? I think it's a realistic target. I think we may end up being there this year.
Robbie Brown, we'll see you in Las Vegas.
Yes, hopefully. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, man. Nye Davies, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Will?
I'm awesome. Thanks for taking the time.
No worries.
How was Toughest Mudder Europe?
It was, it was amazing. Definitely one of the hardest things I've had to do. Not as hard as WTM, but still, it was pretty tough. They put on a good show.
Have you done World's Toughest?
Yeah, I did last year.
How did you do at World's Toughest?
55 miles.
55, that's great. How did you do at Toughest Mudder Europe?
I got in 25 miles, so I got the contender status.
Are you going to come back for Worlds this year?
Yeah, it's all already planned, already done. I'm coming back.
Outstanding. What did you think of the course?
No, it was good. There was a lot of chat that it was going to be quite an easy course in terms of elevation and the terrain. But with the rain we had, it got very muddy. And they actually used quite a lot of the kind of small hills, but over and over again, which was really good. And then the other thing they did was they opened up some of the obstacles at the start. So we went through some of the mud obstacles, Quagmire, for example. And then later on in the night, they opened up a few more. I think it's around about 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. But by 4 o'clock, every single obstacle was open. So there were 20 obstacles over the 5 mile course, which none of us expected. It made it a lot more tougher.
What was the hardest part of the race?
The rain and the wind for me was the hardest part. It got pretty cold, even in, I was wearing frog skins, but those in wetsuits as well. The cold. And then the first mile and a half was all the water-based obstacles. So you had things like Quagmire, you had Dustin there, Augustus Luke, you had Arctic Enema that you had to go through pretty much every lap. It was just full of water that first mile and a half. And then you had the rest of the course, 4 miles almost, of kind of running hills and doing the other technical obstacles, which was pretty difficult.
Did you see a lot of people getting taken out by hypothermia?
I personally didn't see that much. I heard a couple of cases, but I didn't see anything. What I did see, though, was, in terms of medical, was a lot of people failing Everest because it was slippery with the rain. Even with the grappler, people were struggling to get up and kind of falling down, and cuts and bruises were seen.
I saw some pictures of Everest with the grappler. Was the grappler across the entire top of Everest?
No, so half of Everest was the grappler. And I think that the ropes were actually connected already, so you didn't have to throw them up. And then the other half of Everest was the standard Everest 2.0. So if you wanted to attempt it, you could run up. But the rain made that virtually impossible.
Oh, I've never done a Tough Mudder in the rain.
It's different when there's wind as well. It just cuts right through. And then adding nighttime temperatures. I mean, we're averaging around about high 40s most of the night in terms of temperature. So, yeah, it got pretty cold.
Tell me the best story that happened to you out there.
I think it was kind of coming towards the end, actually, kind of going through the last lap. Obviously, all the volunteers couldn't give you hugs, couldn't give you high fives because of the rules of toughest mudder, but every single one of them from probably around about 6:30 onwards were just cheering and kind of, verbally giving you those high fives. And it's just great that every single one of them were well aware of the time of the event and kind of making sure everyone got through the cheers and the sense of accomplishment. And coming through, it was Operation to Kong, and then across the finish line. The volunteers and the spectators just made that kind of special, finishing it off.
Can you tell me about that? They weren't allowed to give you high fives?
Yeah, so it's all about the rule around not giving help on course. So I've heard that some of the volunteers were told not to do high fives or give hugs out to participants because it can be seen as helping.
Sure.
I don't know whether you can verify that from other people, but that's the story I heard.
That's the first I've ever heard of that. I mean, I can kind of see, like, if they gave you a high five and they didn't give the next guy a high five, but...
Right, yeah.
I don't know. That's interesting. So what did you think of the whole concept of the toughest mudder, the 8-hour event, especially after having done World's Toughest already?
I was actually thinking it would be too short in terms of timescale or timeline, but after doing it, 8 hours is spot on. My request when they first kind of posted those surveys was make it 12 hours. But I think 8 is good, and starting at midnight is interesting. So you've got to get kind of the day before planned properly with food and sleep. We had a community dinner the day before, so that kind of worked. Just putting it at night, certainly in the UK, when you don't know what weather it's going to be. It's a really good idea, and the amount of obstacles they have on the course was, for me, great, up to 20 per lap. And we saw some stuff here that we hadn't seen before, like the Hero Walls T-bones. I loved that obstacle. It's just a great addition to the series.
Great. Well, Nye Davies, thanks for your time. John?
Yes, how are you doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
How do you feel?
Quite stiff, actually.
You did 50 miles this weekend in 8 hours.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I guess I'm right to be.
What did you think of the course?
It was really fun, actually. It was a bit different to Worlds, which is nice because, I've done enough laps of the Worlds course now. So, it was really good, especially on home ground as well. So that was fun.
What do you think of the whole toughest mudder concept? 8 hours and...
Yeah, I think it's fun. It's certainly a more endurance side of obstacle racing, but then that just means you have to bring a different skill set. It tests you in many different ways, and it also is long enough that it gives competitors a chance to still help each other out, and yet the person that's meant to win will probably win by the end. Whereas in a shorter event, your shoelace can come untied or something like that, and then you're screwed. So, whereas in this, you've got a little bit more time to help each other out and have a bit more fun, and then hopefully all the right positions are correct by the end.
Can you talk about that helping people out thing with Tough Mudder? I remember last year at Worlds, I saw you and Ryan helping people up Everest, even when you were in the midst of chasing $100,000.
Yeah, I think that's something that comes hand in hand with Tough Mudder anyway, is helping each other out, but also that's a better way of racing if you're going to be doing it sort of happy and sort of confident that you can win anyway. That's not only going to screw with your competition's mind, it's also just going to sort of reaffirm in your mind that you are good enough and it will be fine, and that, I think it's good both ways.
You guys won the World's Toughest the last 2 years in a row, and your teammate Ryan Atkins won the first 2 Toughest Mudders races in the States. Did that put any pressure on you going into Toughest Europe?
Not really. Ryan wasn't even going to be there, so I just, took it as it came, and I knew it was going to be like a long night, so I concentrate on what I'm going to eat and what kit I'm going to have and my own race and not really think too much about anything else.
Going into the race, did you set a mileage goal?
I wanted to do the 50, but then I didn't know whether it'd be possible with how much mud there was going to be. It was really hard to tell. I mean, in England, it can be super muddy the entire way. And luckily, it didn't really start getting churned up in some bits until the rain came in the early hours. But apart from that, it wasn't really that muddy at all.
Chad Trammell was there. He and his teammate were your biggest competition in Vegas last year. And then he also did 50 miles in Los Angeles against Ryan about a month ago. What did you think when you saw him at the starting line?
Yeah, I knew he pushed Ryan really hard in that race, and they had a really good battle together. If that's if we're talking about the same race, and yes, and I know he's a really strong runner anyway. He's also a really nice guy, and I also thought that if we are going to make the 50 miles, it's actually better to have someone there that's going to push you along. So obviously, it's always nice to race people, because if you're just going to go and win without any competition, that's no fun either. So it was really good to see him come over. I've made the trip over the pond to the States like loads of times to race over there. So it's nice that someone actually came the other way and came to race on this side, so they can have jet lag and they can have stiff legs from the plane and whatnot.
Did you have a little home field advantage, you think?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I mean, it did feel as if everyone actually knew my name at this event. Like, my name in Vegas is and John, because everyone's cheering on Ryan and just sort of tagged me on the end. Whereas here, it just seemed that everyone was saying, "Yeah, go John." So that was kind of nice. But apart from that, I'm not really sure how much I think about home advantage anyway, because otherwise, every time I do race in the States, I'll be thinking I've got some sort of disadvantage. So,
how did the start of the race go for you?
It was fine. I mean, we were sitting in the starting pen for 45 minutes, which is a little bit annoying. But then we ducked down and sat down out of the wind. Me and Chad were just chatting away, having sort of like some nice relaxed words, catching up sort of thing. We haven't seen each other since Worlds, so it was kind of nice to have that time to catch up, to be honest.
So you guys have a pretty friendly relationship. It's not really a rivalry.
Yeah, I think everyone in obstacle racing is still pretty friendly, especially in the Tough Mudder community. So at the end of the day, we are competitors, but also we're human beings, and we're all there for a similar sort of cause to push our limits and have fun as well. So, I mean, we've got that in common. It's just at the end of the day, towards the end of the race, we're going to be pushing as hard as we can.
Once the race started, how did the first couple of laps go for you?
Yeah, I was just trying to run easy, but to be honest, I was going a bit too quick, but it felt really easy, so I thought I'd just roll with it. I was running at the front with the German guy that obviously wanted to get the green bib. So when we actually hit the first sort of like the hilly section, he kind of took off up the hill, and I thought, man, there's no point me like destroying my legs now. Right. So I held back a little bit, and at that point, Chad came up and we had a little chat. And then when we came through after the first lap, and I quickly ducked in, grabbed a bottle of water in the pit, I didn't really see Chad too much after that, and just ran off and just kept plodding away, looking forward to doing some obstacles. Did Chad keep going when you took a quick pit? Oh, I've got no idea, to be honest. I don't really remember exactly what happened. I think he might have pissed as well, because I think I went out of the pit in front of him and didn't really see him again until my lap 10 when I lapped him. When did you take the lead? It must have been during that second lap. I was running with another German guy. We were chatting away a bit. I think he was German. Yeah, we were chatting away a bit, and then at one point he sort of said, "If you get a little bit ahead, don't wait up for me," sort of thing. Just run your own race, and that's what I did. And at some point, I was just going alone, and I was just enjoying the encouragement from all the other competitors as I lapped them, because I was surprised with how soon I started lapping people, to be honest. What was it like in the middle of the race, the 4, 5, 6 hour point? To be honest, it's strange because it's a lot shorter than Worlds. Everything came a bit quicker, but everything was kind of exactly the same, just on a smaller scale. So in the middle was sort of like the course starts to thin out, and it feels like there's less people on the course because maybe some people have pitted and whatnot. And it kind of like gets to the coldest hours, and you're just kind of grinding your way through. But I still had really good energy levels, so I was just sort of plodding away, doing my thing, sort of trying to concentrate to not fail any obstacles and be smooth but also fast and just get the job done. Can you talk about the mental part of it, the grinding it through in the middle of the night? Yeah, I think it's just taking one thing at a time. If you think about the whole thing, it kind of really does suck. So just like the next running section and then the next obstacle, then the next running section after that, and just break it down and keep going. I was trying to run at like 4-minute 15, 4-minute 20 kilometers in between the obstacles. So to get up to that speed and then break again for the obstacles, then get up to that speed again is kind of like tiring. So you just have to keep on thinking it in small little chunks.
Do you mean it's mentally tiring or physically tough on your body?
Yeah, it's all tiring. I mean, just thinking about, if you think about an obstacle too far in advance, you end up slowing down anyway because you're thinking about it, and then all of a sudden you realise you haven't really been concentrating on running, and you've been going half the speed.
What was the hardest part about the race?
I think the hardest obstacle was definitely the berth, now whatever it's called. It's the one where you go underneath the sheets of water. That was like so heavy. Getting pinned down under there, and you have to go out and back in it as well. It was terrible. I never thought it would be that heavy, pinning you down sort of thing. You really did have to struggle through there. And it didn't really get any easier. I thought someone would start emptying some water out at some point.
Uh-huh.
But it stayed that hard the whole time.
You won the race with 50 miles. Chad came in second with 45. When did you know you had it won?
I don't know. I was still going around pretty easy, but still setting good lap times. About halfway through, someone said I must have been sort of like a couple of miles ahead of second place, and then that turned into like 30 minutes or something like that. So then at that point, I thought all I need to do is just keep going and I'll get it done. But then it turned into I want to get the 50 miles done as well. So I didn't really want to slow down too much. I just wanted to get the job done and then sort of like stop and rest. So
was it pretty important?
I think about halfway through, yeah.
Halfway through, you knew you had it won.
Yeah, not that I had it won. I mean, even on the last lap, you can twist an ankle. I knew I was feeling good. Obviously, my legs were starting to stiffen up and I was starting to get a bit tired. But I've been in this situation before, especially in Worlds twice as well, that you know that if you keep eating, keep feeding, keep drinking, keep doing what you're doing, they'll keep doing the same. And if they've been slower than you up to that point, it's not like they're saving anything. So just keep going and it'll be fine. Don't do anything stupid.
Was it pretty important to you to hit that 50 miles?
Yeah, I mean, I do this for a living, so the money always helps. And also just to say, look, it can be done over here and by someone else because everyone looks up to Ryan quite a lot. So that was kind of nice. And also just it was a challenge, I guess, for myself. So I just wanted to get it done for me.
Do you feel like you're in Ryan's shadow because you guys have been teammates for a couple of years?
Not really. I think Ryan's got more of a following in the Tough Mudder community, but that doesn't really bother me at all. Part of the reason why I love that I'm living in Norway is the fact I get to come back here and no one knows who I am. I just live like a quiet, normal life running around in the mountains, so that actually suits me better. So.
Do you plan to do any more of the Toughest Mudder races?
I promise to look at my calendar because I know the organisers would love for me to, but I'm not really sure. So I'm going to look into it the next couple of days, but I really have no idea.
What are your plans for World's Toughest this year?
I don't know. I haven't decided whether I'll be going to that either yet. So we shall see how the season goes and how I'm feeling and whether I actually want to as well. I mean, it's a pretty big undertaking for everyone, let alone if you're going to be trying to push for 110 miles this year. So, I mean, it's a pretty painful event. It depends whether I'm psychologically and physically ready. So.
I was preparing to talk to you, and I was looking at the people who have won World's Toughest Mudder. There are very few people with multiple wins at World's Toughest. As far as I can tell, there's 4 people in the club. There's you, there's Ryan, there's Amelia Boone, and there's Jun Young Pak. If you ran Worlds this year, what would winning it in the solo category mean to you?
I don't know, because I mean, before I never really saw Worlds as a big race I really wanted to accomplish. I just saw it as a really long way. And then when the team category came along and the challenge of doing the 100 miles, especially me and Ryan doing it together, like that was something I could really aim for as well. But when I look at it, it's just sort of like a challenge for one person. It was never a race that I really looked at and thought, I really want to go and win that. That's why I need to really work out if I still feel the same way. Because, I mean, when you go to that race, you have to have a really big reason as to why you're there, because otherwise you'll just stop. Like, you need to, in the team race, I guess I didn't want to let Ryan down. Obviously, I wanted to do it for myself, but that was a massive reason as to why I had to continue. Now, if I go there alone and I'm not that psyched about winning the race, I'm just going to end up stopping, so it'd be a waste of a trip anyway. So I need to really, really work out if I've got a big enough reason to be out in the desert running for 24 hours.
This past weekend at Toughest Mudder Europe, your sister ran in the race also. What was that like?
Yeah, that was fun. I got to see her out on the course. It was really cool seeing her go around and seeing her sort of not only doing really well herself, but helping out. There was one instance when I got up to Everest and she couldn't get up it alone, but she didn't want to do the penalty. So I went up the grappler way, got up there, helped her up. And then she said, I'm going to wait here for the next person. And I looked at her and said, but I can't see anyone. Like, there's no one on the horizon. Like, what do you mean? She said, no, I'm going to wait here because I was stuck here. So then she waited for the next person to turn up while I ran off, which I thought really sort of like, yeah, that was really cool to see because not only was she competing, she was like 100% in it to help other people as well. So
that's a great story. When you do operation, do you still get shocked?
I didn't get shocked this time. I thought the board might have been a little bit closer than in Worlds. I'm not really sure, but I don't know. I just kind of picked it up, walked the pole in, and then stood in the water, obviously, like quite close to the hole. But it was really hard to hook the rings off. Like some of the bands seemed to be kind of stuck to their hook, and then some of the hooks on the poles didn't really they weren't the right angle, so you couldn't sort of scrape up the wall to kind of hook it on. You could just kind of like balance it on top. And then once you've hooked it on, sort of like withdraw nice and smoothly. But I don't think it was that hard, to be honest. And then I got there for the first time and everyone was standing outside the water trying to do it from like 2 meters back. It's like, how much harder is that going to be, do it from 2 meters back? And then someone started shouting, you've got to stand in the water.
And you're still going to get shocked. It doesn't matter where you stand.
Yeah, I know. It's just a psychological thing, maybe. Then that was also something I was shouting at Jim when I ran round. I was shouting to him, you've got to teach English people how to do the block nest monster, because it was getting so annoying getting into the water. And like in World, it's kind of seamless. Everyone's like boom, boom, boom. It's like a big working machine to get people over the blocks. Whereas in England, it was kind of like everyone was shouting at each other and didn't really, like some people were just going over then fucking off, and some people like didn't really realising that when you get up, it helps a lot if you do a pull-up and then kind of fling yourself over and really weigh yourself down the other side. You can't just jump up and hold on and wait for the thing to roll over. But then I did find out apparently the UK blocks are a lot heavier than the US ones, so that means it's a lot harder.
Really?
And in which case you need a lot more people to do it. And in Worlds, you've always got a lot of people. And in this sort of like 8-hour through the night thing in England, there was a lot less people in the water at any one time.
Or can you get through Loch Ness by yourself, or do you need help? No,
I got through. It's fine. The hardest thing is if it's in just the wrong position, that you can't sort of grab the top. You can if you just roll it a little bit and you get the corner right, like pointing straight up, and just jump up and then really quick do a pull-up, fling yourself over the other side. And then if you want to help someone else up, then you've got to kind of like flag yourself over it. So you get your weight as far away from the centre as possible to produce as much momentum. Whereas some people are just sort of kind of sitting on the top, thinking that they're going to somehow propel the thing around.
Do you think it's harder to do an 8-hour race or a 24-hour race mentally? I
don't know. It's very different. So I think in the 8-hour race, your legs get completely fucked because you can run hard. So that means I'm actually probably stiffer now, I don't know, maybe nearly, than in Worlds, at least a lot more banged up. Because in Worlds, you're going so slowly but for so long, in the end of the day, your heart rate doesn't even allow your legs to run fast enough to, like, really get destroyed. You're just plodding for so long, so that means it's, like, really hard on your whole system and your heart is, like, pumping for so long. Whereas this is kind of like you can really fuck your legs up. Psychologically, Worlds is obviously quite a bit harder, but then it's also how much, if you tell your mind it's going to be 2 hours, that 2 hours will be quite hard. If you tell it's 8 hours, that 8 hours will be quite hard. In Worlds, you prepare yourself for 24 hours. So it's kind of like nearly the same amount of hardness. It's just what you prepared yourself for can matter quite a lot.
I talked to several people who said that they can't imagine doing what they did 2 more times. Like, you know,
I can't either, and I've already done it. So it just shows that whatever you're prepared for, you'll be able to do. Like everyone always starts failing in the last miles of a marathon and in the last sort of hours before the end, sort of thing. It's always when you're about to be finished that things start falling apart. So in Worlds, that's just pushed a lot further back, and you're going to be going a lot slower and taking better care of yourself. I mean, in this race, you could be a bit reckless in some respects, whereas in Worlds, you have to be very, very careful with a lot of things.
when you and Ryan were training last year, they were taping it for the TV show for CBS.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys train together, do you ever race each other?
Not really, no. I think we've both got pretty similar training strategies, which is kind of like to have a lot of fun when we train and go out and do cool mountain runs and this and that. And also, at that point, we'd had such a long season of racing. Really, to prepare for Worlds, all we did was like long mountain runs. We didn't really do any intervals as such. We were just getting used to running long and slow and eating. We were really trying to sort of like test what foods we were going to eat and get our bodies used to eating while we're running and giving us more energy.
How long do you guys run on those training runs?
I think the biggest we did was something like 4 or 5 hours sort of thing. I mean, we only had 4 or 5 days together, so we went to, I think it was the Catskill Mountains and ran around in our wetsuits for 5 or 6 hours sort of thing, and that was pretty fun. Then did a similar time the next day.
How long do you run to train for an 8-hour race?
I don't know. My training for this has just been me training for the entire year, to be honest. This was just part of it. But I guess lately on a Sunday I've been doing sort of like an hour and a half on the road, which is probably about 20k. And then I've been doing 3 hours in the mountains, which is another 20k. And then doing some yoga and some swimming afterwards to sort of like relax off. So that's probably the biggest days I've been having, a sort of like marathon days split into two. Unless you're really prepared to do 24 hours for a really good reason. So we'll see. But they made it 110 miles. I mean, last year it just seemed pretty fast because it was so warm and it was like nice conditions and whatnot. But it's going to have to be just as good conditions if we're going to do 110 miles.
Yeah, you know what I'm worried about? I'm worried Tough Mudder's going to see you and Ryan and Chad doing 50 miles at these races and think, well, they could do 150 if they really wanted to, so...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could push yourself a lot harder than the 8-hour ones, definitely. But every course is different. Like, there's really no way to compare. Like, I got 87k for the 80k I was meant to have done. So I even ran, like, practically an extra lap in extra distance.
Huh.
That's how different all the courses are. So it's really hard to compare unless you're against each other. But it was nice to know that Chad said... on the first lap, he's like, wow, this feels like a fast course. Like, this is going to be 50 miles for sure. And he said to me at the end that once all the obstacles opened and he found out how hard the obstacles were and how many of them there were, he was thinking, wow, there's no way anyone's going to do 50 miles here. And I did it pretty, not relaxed, but I took the last lap pretty easy and I had time to spare. So
they made a big change with going from 2 loops that we've had here to 1 loop that you guys had.
So that meant less obstacle-free running time. Yeah, and also, the first lap wasn't even obstacle-free. It was full of fucking crawling and mud obstacles.
John, I think I'm out of questions, man. I ran out of questions 2 minutes ago, but I've just been talking.
No worries. It was a pretty cool event. It was really cool to see everyone out there. And I don't know, I'm kind of in the Tough Mudder community a little bit because of Worlds, but now a little bit more, maybe.
John, do you have any last thoughts on Toughest Mudder Europe?
Not really. It was a lot of fun. It was a cool event, really cool obstacles, and it was strange because it was a long way, and you think it's going to be short because the 24 hours is so long, but 8 hours is still quite a big undertaking. So I had a lot of fun, and I'm glad. Like, it seemed like everyone else had a lot of fun as well. There's a lot of people which probably can't afford or a little bit scared to undertake the 24 hours. So this being a step into that maybe has opened their eyes a little bit, and now maybe they'll look forward and look to do the 24 hours as well, because this would have shown them that they can accomplish what they set their mind to.
Jon Albon thinks you should do it. I think you should do it. Sign up for World's Toughest today. Shoot me an email afterwards, willhicks@gmail.com. Let me know you signed up. Special thanks to all of our guests today, Phil Renton, Emma Faye, Robbie Brown, Nye Davies, and of course, Jon Albon. I'll see you guys next time.